Welcome to Galaxy Brains.
An infinite amount of cash.
I'm your host, Alex Thorn.
The U.S. banking system is sound and resilient.
Bitcoin made a new all-time high.
If you're not long, you're short.
Satoshi's going to come on there, laugh hysterically, go quiet. All Bitcoin's going to be erased.
Bitcoin's the best crypto out there.
Bitcoin is going to zero.
Welcome back to Galaxy Brains. As always, I'm your host, Alex Thorn, head of firm-wide research at Galaxy. Bitcoin not zero. We have a great episode for you this week. Anthony Pompliano, Pomp, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, veteran, is our guest. I've wanted to have Pomp on the show for a long time. I've known him for a very long time at this point. We're going to talk to him about what this market feels like since he really gotten interested in 16, 17, the cycles of Bitcoin and crypto, what he is building in AI and real estate and Bitcoin, and a bunch of other fun stuff. I'm going to ask him to pick between Becky Quick, Andrew Ross Sorkin, and Joe Kernan, who is his favorite host of Squawk Box. And we'll talk with our good friend Bimnet Abebe from Galaxy Trading. As always, I have to warn you, Bimnet is bearish. I don't think he's going to, that shouldn't surprise this audience. He's been bearish for several weeks. I don't think he's going to get filled at his bearish target, though, personally. But it's a I will say, a sobering conversation with Bimnet. Before we get to that, I need to remind you, please refer to a link to the disclaimer in the podcast notes. Note that none of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by Galaxy or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Let's get right into it with Bimnet the Bear. Let's go now to our friend Bimnet Abebe from Galaxy Trading. As always, Bimnet, welcome to Galaxy Brains.
Thanks for having me.
I was debating how to start this conversation, and all I can really offer is, well, just like last week, things feel pretty bearish. I guess slightly more bullish because last week we went under 100K to like 98.9. Bitcoin has defended the 100K level since then, but it feels like it's on the ropes.
It is on the ropes, and I think the price action is quite telling. Most notably, Bitcoin moved from like 102K to like 105 based on the shutdown news that we got this week.
That we expected to end.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, S&P and NASDAQ had one of their better days of the year. And it seemed like, crypto was going to keep up or at least get some more support on the back of broader risk trading well. However, that has not been the case. We are now like at or below the shutdown ending news levels, which kind of tells you that one, crypto is trading more idiosyncratically and is probably, has more things that are specific to crypto driving crypto price action and isn't just trading like a big blob of risk.
Yeah.
And then I think that, you have to be aware of the technicals. And, one of the big things I look at, in terms of determining my view for the next like 3, 6, 9 months is kind of like the weekly charts. Mm-hmm. And there's a really big support level at the 50-week moving average. We've been above it for a really long time. And so, if we were to see, basically a weekly close below that level, it would indicate like a move to the 100-week moving average or even the 200-week moving average.
Which I'm assuming are much lower.
It's like 80 and 55. Yeah.
We've probably been above the 50-week, if I had to guess, since like, the start of 24 or even fall 23, I would guess.
It's been
We've pretty
really
much been on
time.
a straight line. Well,
Correct.
It hasn't felt like a straight line, but we've been in a bull market objectively since September, October 2023, when the hype for the incoming ETFs really started to build.
Yeah. But realistically, I mean, you've been in a straight line path since FTX bottom.
Fair.
Right? You've gone from 20 to 125K at the highs. Basically, like if you were only investing and looking like on a month-by-month basis, you wouldn't have really felt the volatility. It just looks like a giant TWAP higher.
Yeah.
And so, when you see big technical breaks like that, I do think you have to pay attention. And that is, one part of the story, which is just the technicals, but really like, Bitcoin and financial markets right now, like a lot of it is driven by like attention, right? And what brings attention to a specific asset? Catalysts. We don't have them. It's another thing that brings attention. Really rapid moves to the upside.
Yep.
Right?
Hasn't happened in a while.
Hasn't happened in a while. And even prior to this, like Bitcoin was just, chopping between 105 and 115 for like a really long time.
Yeah.
And so the malaise that has kind of like gripped Bitcoin, is really harmful, I think. And then we've spoke about it on last week's Galaxy Brains, but there's a lot of self-reinforcing things that can lead to price moving lower, like the reflexivity with the DATs, their inability to kind of issue more equity to buy, and most importantly though, it's just like, where are the marginal buyers coming in from right now?
Right. We know the DATs aren't really
Correct.
They're not really buying.
Yeah.
Saylor's figuring out ways to buy more, but it's not nearly at the scale that he was earlier this year. It does, right? Would you say then it's fair to say that risk feels to the downside here, right? I mean, Bitcoin's struggling to stay up above 100. Like at some point, it looks like there's a question. Does it want to go below 100? No one's asking right now if it wants to go above 110. That's not the question in play.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think this market historically is generally traded towards max pain.
Yeah.
Right. And max pain is, there's been a bunch of ETF buyers over the past since
You're saying
the advent.
people are long.
People are very long.
Yeah.
And what would it take for people's confidence to break down in BTC? I think really all you need is a break below 100. And so I'm just thinking about it like, how do you trade this market? And while I do think that there's room for upside movement, particularly because it's an illiquid market, shorts often get squeezed. And so, my view is that, it's not going to be like a crash if we go lower. I think it's going to be a pretty controlled, like up down environment with a trend lower. It's kind of my base case. But again, like it really depends on your investing horizon, right? Like if you're focused on the week by week, month by month, it's okay to kind of like have a tactical view like I have, at the moment. I think if you are a long-term, accumulator, stacker, I think, best to kind of like broaden your horizons and figure out levels where you care to buy.
Yeah.
I think personally for me, like, I'd be happy to get filled anywhere below 80K. I would be more than happy to buy some and hold it for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
But, right here, right now, like, given the set of circumstances, like, it'd be hard for anyone to argue that being flat isn't like
isn't a reasonable. You feel like
position.
this story hasn't fully played out in the near term. It wasn't just you don't think it was just a 126 to 100 move, right? So that's why that's why you feel comfortable being flat to let the story play out further before you take action.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think like in terms of like equities, like you're in the strongest like seasonal part of the year, right? October and November, Santa Claus rally. And so if you don't see Bitcoin trading well in an environment where the S&P and Nas are essentially back at all-time highs, like that is really, hitting my confidence in this asset. And I would think it's going to be damaging overall as well.
Well, the saga continues. Let's leave it there for now, Bim. I really appreciate it. Bimnet, to your credit, you've been calling for this for now several weeks. Our listeners will know. So, we just keep. I guess bulls have 80K to defend if they want to keep Bimnet from being able to stack.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Bimnet.
it.
Bimnet Abebe from Galaxy Trading. Let's go now to our guest, Anthony Pompliano, entrepreneur and investor. Sir, welcome to Galaxy Brains.
Thanks for having me. Great name.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for coming. There's so much we could talk about. Maybe I'll just start here. You've been in this space in Bitcoin and in crypto for a long time. It's pretty much as we record this, the 3-year anniversary of the collapse of FTX. I know it was 3 years ago. It almost feels like 10 at this point. How far have we come since then in 22? Because the market seems significantly more mature than whatever that era was.
I kind of feel like I joined the industry at halftime, frankly. If you think about, there's like 2009, 2010, up until maybe the 2016, 2017, like that era originally was a very different era than what we saw from 2016 to today, right? So I had talked about Bitcoin a couple of times with friends, and I've got, the classic DM of like, this is dumb. What are you doing? I'm not going to waste my time on this. So, after I got past those mistakes, I feel like I kind of joined at halftime where we were transitioning from what I would say is like hardcore cypherpunk, very technical, a little, anarchist type, libertarian market to what was like really early adopters. Right. And so, proud to be part of the early adopter, but also very fortunate that, the people who came before us did what they did. Now, from the early adopter to now what I would consider like we're in the mass adoption phase, kind of, now we're really taking off. The moment that really, to me, marks that transition from early adopter to kind of mass adoption is actually the FTX situation. And FTX was unique in that you had the crypto world and you had the kind of venture capital community, all eyes on this thing. And it was sitting at the epicenter of investing, of users, of politics. It became this like social phenomenon where they had, Tom Brady and all these people. And like, it was just like, it was like almost a story too good to be true. Right. And I think that there's two main things that I took away from that entire situation. So FTX, all of the kind of contagion that occurred, companies that we were involved with that didn't work out, all that kind of stuff. The first is that there's a gentleman here in New York. He's an investor named Jeremy who he has this viewpoint of people are before the fall or after the fall. And he's like, you can kind of see it. Like, you ever seen the movie 12 Strong? It's about the first soldiers that were in Afghanistan. And they ride on horses into battle.
It's like the first in.
Correct. Yeah. And in one of the scenes, they meet up with the commander of the Northern Alliance, which is, one of the tribes. But they're going to be on the American side. And he basically refuses to talk to the officer. And he's looking and he just keeps talking to kind of the older, more grisly soldier. And at some point he says, you don't have killer eyes. He has killer eyes. Like, you ain't seen anything. You're a young kid, right? You haven't been in here. Like, that guy right there, that guy's seen stuff.
Yeah, that's why I talked to him.
Before the fall, after the fall,
see.
Right? And so I think that the industry in general, if you were not there in the early days of the Mt. Gox, kind of like that was one entire generation of Bitcoin or crypto folks, that was there before or after the fall. FTX was that for the early adopters. And I think that you can see like there's been a bifurcation. There's some people who figured out how to navigate that entire situation and continued forward and built their business or continued investing. There's a lot of people who, if you think back to folks that we all know, they kind of disappeared, right?
Yeah.
And some of it, they made too much money, right? They just say, I'm good. Other people said, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. This is too much for me, and they went elsewhere. And so I think that that to me is probably one of the big takeaways was who could survive, who could kind of navigate, chaos, uncertainty, volatility, et cetera. And then the other big thing was there's the entire idea of like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, like go together.
Yeah.
The companies who had that long term horizon and really focused on doing the things that made them resilient over the long term, they're still standing. And fast growth is obviously celebrated when it comes to the venture community, but a lot of the fastest growing companies didn't make it.
That's right.
And so there is some balance between how fast can you grow, but how resilient can you be? And I think that we probably tilted a little bit too far on how fast. And so a big takeaway was you want to grow fast, but only if you can survive, right? It's kind of like the Howard Marks. You never want to be the number one investor in a year because you had to take so much risk to be there that you were willing to be the last investor if you were wrong.
Interesting.
Instead, you want to just consistently be above average. And if you do that for 30 years, somehow you end up through attrition being one of the top investors. Same thing here is you may not want to be the fastest growing company every single year. You might just want to be like, top 5 like that, with some resilience in there. And that puts you in a much better position.
It's so fascinating. I think those are really great analogies, and you're right. We do have a firmer foundation than we did. That was the move fast, break things, 2021. I mean,
we needed that though.
We did. That was we spread the word. We spread the virus. I was going to say you used to have. I guess you had to stop saying the virus is spreading during COVID. I'm assuming.
So
Did someone
again,
call you,
as part
your
of
wife
being,
or someone was like, you should probably.
No, as part of being that early adopter cohort,
Yeah.
I started telling people like the virus spreading. The whole idea was it's just like this thing is permeating all through the financial market. Just everywhere you look, it's like somebody is getting infected with this idea.
I feel like every person that is at all meaningfully interested in crypto or Bitcoin that didn't learn in 17, they definitely learned in 21. Like that was a huge explosion of knowledge and interest.
So somebody, one of the kind of the OGs that I really respect and feel like we're kind of like standing on their shoulders. He goes, "Hey, you may not know this, but on some of the early Bitcoin talk forums and stuff, there was this idea of a mind virus, right?" And I was like, man, like it's just like an idea's time has come.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't aware of that, right? I was saying the virus is spreading, but you're just like, it doesn't matter who comes across this asset. They very quickly pick up the same mental frameworks. And it's because the asset itself has merit.
It has merit and has a lore tied to itself.
Correct.
It has characteristics.
Correct.
Such as the virality
Now,
of it.
COVID, that put a stop to the phrase "the virus."
Was
is
it your
spreading.
wife or somebody who was like, Anthony, you might want to stop saying
No,
goodbye?
I was self-aware enough to know. Probably should stop saying
I
that
think
one.
I actually remember the moment when you stopped saying it, like on Twitter. I think I remember. I was like, oh, he stopped saying it. I guess that makes sense.
So I was pretty early to realizing like this thing was not going to be contained because we used to have an office on 42nd Street, right across from Grand Central. And the very first case of COVID in New York City was, I believe, a lawyer who came from Westchester, and they sent out an email to the building, and they said the very first case of COVID that's happened in New York City is in our building. Guy was 4 floors below us, took the same elevator bank. So now I'm like, can you like inhale this in the elevator? Like what? No one really knew what was going on.
It was scary
right?
at first, for sure.
And so the first thing I did was I Googled how many people go through Grand Central. It's like 750,000 people a day or something. I was like, dude, there's zero chance. If this thing is actually some sort of contagious component to it, there is no chance they're containing this.
Yeah.
So I went home and I was like, all right, this may be a different world.
Well, I had a similar experience because I was at Avon Ventures, the Fidelity affiliated venture fund in the crypto space, and our office was right in front of the aquarium in Boston.
Yep.
And right next to that is the Marriott Long Wharf, it's called, and that's where that weird pharmaceutical conference was, where was Ground Zero in Boston. And then I think it was one of the main Ground Zeros in the country.
100%.
Because all these folks at this conference then flew home and spread it everywhere. And I was like, I told my wife, she was like, wait, isn't that near your office? I was like, babe, I go to that Starbucks in that hotel every morning.
Do you know the concept of lattice work? You ever heard of this? So there's this concept called lattice work that there's a great book actually titled Lattice Work, who was a guy who worked with Bill Miller back in the early 2000s or late 1990s. And the entire idea is you can study a bunch of different disciplines, a bunch of different fields, and they all kind of intersect with each other.
Right.
And so there's an entire, very small, but an entire group of people who believe that if you study biology, it actually can help you better understand financial markets. The same way that a virus spreads or something, right? Ideas can spread or companies can grow, products can grow. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And so this idea of lattice work is actually paying attention to something like COVID can really inform investments.
Interesting.
If you think about, look today, right? Prediction markets were not around in 2020. Imagine how valuable it would have been to see people wagering.
Yeah.
People also forget that Zero Hedge got kicked off of Twitter at the time. And I remember what they said. And as soon as I saw them get kicked off, I said, it's true. I told my wife, I said, that's 100% true, right? Because the fact that it's being kicked off, because it wasn't like, going after somebody.
Right.
And then the second thing was there were some guys, I think in Silicon Valley, they created a pseudonymous Google Doc. And it was basically them trying to compile all of the known information about the virus and where it came from and its effects, whatever. But it was done pseudonymously so that no one could ascribe any sort of value or punishment to the authors. Mm-hmm. And I remember just being like, oh, we're headed to a world where crypto is going to be way more valuable.
Right.
Like pseudonymous publishing of information is no different than pseudonymous transactions.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just like pay attention to the world and you start to see like these things all happen at the same time. And so whether it's biology, whether it's, kind of more current events or whatever, I just think that can form how to invest capital.
That's brilliant. I'm like, John Nash and Russell Crowe, like the things are flying around in my brain right here listening to you talk, Anthony. Another thing that you used to...
Don't worry, 1 + 1 = 2.
Another virus that you had discussed that was spreading back in the day was tokenization. You used to say tokenize the world or everything will be tokenized. That kind of fell out of favor for a little bit in like the I remember there was, we used to joke there were more token issuance platforms than tokens back in like 18 and 19. But it seems like that is back. We tokenize Galaxy stock. There's equity security tokens are exploding. People talk about, came up with a new term for it, RWA. What do you see here in this spot? And is this where crypto and traditional markets are finally going to merge together?
Well, if you go back, I can't remember when I wrote it, but 2017, 2018, my basic framework was we were going through a transition period that was very natural in financial markets. And we went from what I called the analog age to the electronic age. So there used to be these analog assets. You used to have physical stock certificates, physical bonds, physical deeds to your home. Everything was paper, filing cabinet, right? I mean, it was very much a analog world. And the transition in the pretty much like the 80s into the 90s was we went from all that physical paper or analog to electronic QSIPs. And the electronic QSIPs were revolutionary compared to the paper. You can now move them around, and who cared if it was 2-day settlement times? Like the fact that you could send something to someone else in the world and didn't have to physically mail it.
Right.
All that stuff was very valuable.
Game changer.
Correct. And so my framework was we were going to go from the electronic age to the digital age. And the digital age was going to involve everything being a token that could now move freely around the world without the 2-day settlement times. It was cheaper, it was faster, it was better. Now, this famous Bill Gates quote that we kind of overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10.
Yep.
And after about a year of talking about this, I pretty much came to the conclusion this is going to happen. It's going to take way longer than I thought. And so I stopped talking about it because I felt like being too early is just the same as being wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And I realized that it wasn't going to happen in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, right?
Right.
So fast forward to 2025, like now it kind of feels like, okay, there's enough here. Now I'm very skeptical because of my prior experience. So I have a bias to say, prove to me that there's volume. Prove to me that the investors actually want this. And, it falls into this second framework I have, which is crypto is going to be dead in 10 years. And when I say that, what I mean is that crypto and the traditional financial world are merging together. We are no longer going to talk about crypto in 10 years. People are going to be like, remember when we used to call it crypto?
Now it's just assets.
It's just finance, right? Yeah. There's equities, there's bonds, there's currencies, there's commodities, all this stuff. It's no different than people used to be like internet finance. Right?
Yeah.
And it's
or
like
the World Wide Web.
Yeah, and it's just like this new thing that everyone's fascinated
with. Have you tried the web?
Now you would be like, wait, you don't use the internet? Like we talk about, Buffett doesn't have a computer, and we're like, wow.
I know,
right?
like crazy.
And so I think that, we have platforms today where people trade on their phones.
Yeah.
Everything has become the internet.
Yeah.
The internet finance era died and it just became finance. Same thing here. Crypto is going to die over the next 10 years. And that's part of mass adoption is once it becomes pervasive, it's no longer new. It's no longer novel. And it's just the standard, which means that crypto wins. We get to plant our flag on Wall Street and say, we have won. It's just not in the way of we have conquered and destroyed your system.
Yeah.
Instead, it is kind of like we got, kind of incorporated into it. And now we all live in peace and harmony together on Wall Street.
I think that makes sense. You even have, how much of that was regulatory changes that we've seen, this year or versus just maturation and,
Yeah, I think regulation is some of it. I think people really, and I've spent a lot of time going back and looking at how did the internet get adopted? So not so just the technology, but the consumer adoption of the internet. A very large part of it is that you have to allow for young people to become middle-aged people. You have to allow for preferences to change. You have to train someone to actually not go to Google.com, go to ChatGPT, right? Like there are things that occur over time, and it's a familiarity to it. And so, and the good news is if you think today, somebody in the United States who is under the age of 18, for the most part, doesn't know, or whatever, 16, doesn't really know a world without Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The history of Bitcoin versus fiat currency in their mind is both, they've been around since I was born.
It's crazy.
Right? You and I know a world before Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of folks who are older, they actually know a world before fiat, right? And so it's all about these kind of age demographics. Now, if you also think about Coinbase, there's a guy, Max Brandsburg there, who's got this great saying. He says, DeFi mullet. And the whole idea of a DeFi mullet is the front end looks the exact same. In their case, they say, kind of the trusted front end of Coinbase. It could be any service. But the back end plumbing now starts to become more DeFi-oriented or crypto-oriented or token-oriented, et cetera.
Right.
We will not have been successful until the user is using a product they don't even know they're using.
Yeah.
if I have to go to a separate account, if I have to go to use something where my heart starts pumping a little bit more because I'm like, oh, am I really going to be able to send the stablecoin to Alex?
Yeah.
What I want to just be able to say is send it. Now, I say that. Remember, the banking system's not completely, insulated from this.
Right.
There's account numbers, and there's, ACH numbers. There's SWIFT. There's name of the account. You have to put the address of the account to do
why
a
do you
wire.
have to do that? The address. That doesn't make sense.
It's just the system that was
It's
built.
very strange, though.
So, we're headed in the right direction, but there's still quite a bit of, I think, kind of work to be done there. And so you need consumer preferences to change. You need young people to kind of move into the cohort where they actually have assets. And then you also need the technology to continue to innovate. The next 10 years or so, I feel like all of that kind of comes to a head. And you see the big institutions. Like, a lot of these folks are doing things that they are not announcing publicly. And they're playing, they're tinkering, they're trying to figure out where's our spot.
Yeah.
Right? And, if you think of like a Citadel with payment for order flow, where's our spot? Oh, this Robinhood thing, maybe it'll get big.
Right.
Let's go into it, right? Now everyone wants to play that game. Well, that is going to be the future here, whether it's tokenizing equities, whether it's bringing funds on chain, whether it's some sort of payment system that is like streaming payment. All of that is trying to be figured out. And you now have not only the, kind of early adopter technologist types that are pushing this forward, you now have JP Morgan, you have BNY, right? You have NASDAQ.
Yeah.
They're all playing.
Yeah.
Come on, it's going to get figured out.
Yeah, I think 3 of the 4 biggest custody banks, so State Street, BNY, Citi, and JPM, all of them except for JPM have announced or launched crypto custody already. So BNY is live. I think State Street and Citi both said they'll be live next year. JPM has actually said, we're not currently looking at it, but that just means currently, probably like in a month, they'll be like, okay, we're looking at it, right? So, I mean,
one acquisition away from being in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie will finally capitulate, I think, on this. He still calls it Satoshi. It's actually on the intro of this show. If you're listening, we have that quote of Jamie Dimon. He said, "Satoshi's going to come back. Poof! All the Bitcoin will be destroyed." But he
SoFi now is
Right.
a bank that is allowing crypto trading. I think they're the first federally registered bank to allow crypto trading.
Interesting, yeah.
Right? So, okay, does that mean that eventually in my brokerage account?
Well, and everyone's applying for that OCC license. By the way,
Yeah.
I think Anchorage has it as well. They snuck in Mnuchin, the prior administration. I can't imagine what what they had to go through under Biden's presidency to maintain that license. But everything might. Well, now you can be a bank, right? Operation Choke Point is not in effect, as far as we know.
I think that it's still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so? You still hear? Is it late? Is
We
it
have a lot of
stragglers?
we have a lot of companies.
Yeah.
We have a lot of investments. We have a lot of accounts for people on our team or in our ecosystem. I consistently hear stories of companies being denied bank accounts. I've heard stories of publicly traded companies being denied bank accounts at certain very large financial institutions, and they don't want to put it in writing, right? But it's not the relationship manager making the decision. It's somebody in a risk department somewhere still being uncomfortable with doing it. Over time, I think that will change, right? So, it's kind of, you're on the cusp of this transition from a hardcore choke point 2.0. You can openly do this stuff and no one cares.
Now it's behind the scenes, but it still exists.
It's the remnants.
Yeah.
Right? And so 2 years from now, it'll be over. You're kind of decaying away the woke ideology, the anti-crypto ideology, just all these things. And it just takes time to thaw. We're thawing the chicken right now.
So let's talk about Bitcoin specifically a little bit. You're one of the most consistent and loudest advocates of Bitcoin. I think in one of the places I'm going to ask you about CNBC is on Squawk Box. You're a regular fixture there. So I see you're wearing the same. So you must have 5 of these suits, right? Because this is the look that
I've been wearing this tie for a decade. It's almost over. We're going to have to find another one.
So where does Bitcoin fit in this tokenized future or this merger of crypto and traditional where it stops saying crypto? What is your long-term case from sort of today for Bitcoin? Is it debasement hedge? What is it? What is Bitcoin?
I think Bitcoin is different things to different people, right? Some people really care about the debasement of the fiat currency. Well, if you're in certain areas, that's the single most important problem that you face. And so Bitcoin's a great solution. I think there's other people who could care less about debasement, but they really, really need to be able to move assets without being censored, or they may need to be able to hold economic value without having it seized, right? There's all these kind of different things as to why someone may hold Bitcoin, use Bitcoin, or mine Bitcoin, et cetera, right?
Yep.
Now, with that said, I believe that the digital world is actually exactly like the electronic world. So if you think of the electronic system that we have today, as an individual user, I have a savings account, I have a checking account, and I have a brokerage account. In the digital world, I'm going to have the exact same thing. Bitcoin is my savings account, stable coins are my checking account, and then I'm going to have a brokerage type account where I can do all kinds of crazy stuff I want to do that try to outperform my savings. Now, what we have seen so far is that Bitcoin is a very radical departure from a traditional savings account, right? Historically, in a savings account, you saved in the same asset that sat in your checking account. It was just treated differently by the financial institution. What the digital world allows for that I think is a very profound improvement is the switching cost, the friction between going from one asset to another has significantly dropped. And I always use currencies as an example. You used to have to go, and many people still today, if I want to go to Mexico, I need pesos. Okay. Well, if I'm going to go get those pesos, where do I go? Either go to the bank and hope they have some, or I get ripped off at the airport, right? Or I go to a money changer and get
Usually
ripped
I
off.
forget and do end up getting ripped off at the airport.
Of course. So that friction is very high, both in terms of cost, but also I have to physically go somewhere to get the physical asset, right? Now, if you go and you look at, in this digital world, I can press a button on my phone. Near zero cost, instantaneous, at any point I can switch back and forth between these currencies. So if you lower the friction between switching costs, now all of a sudden you're going to have a lot more people switching, right? And capital is going to flow between these things. So Bitcoin as a savings asset all of a sudden now becomes really interesting. Stable coins, I want to spend the thing that is going to be worth less in the future.
Always.
And so naturally, the dollar is really good at short-term stability, long-term kind of detriment. And so I think that will continue. And then you get this kind of token-based system. Now, again, Apple stock, it doesn't matter if I have the physical stock certificate, the electronic QSIP, or the token. I have Apple. I have a claim on cash flows. I have certain shareholder rights. I've got the capital appreciation or depreciation of my investment. All these things that come with owning Apple stock. I think people are who critique that kind of token-based system, they're like so deep in the weeds that they don't realize the end user's not going to even know. They're just going to be on a platform and they're going to be switching between all these different assets.
Right.
And you see it, whether it's Coinbase, whether it is Robinhood. I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing Galaxy One and some of the stuff you guys are doing there is going to eventually all try to go after this. Like, we want to be a market. And that market is for everything. It's for equities. It's for crypto. It's for prediction markets, right? All this stuff can be done in one single place. And if you do that the right way, I think that that's where you start to see a pretty interesting, better future for the end user.
Yeah, makes sense. So you talked about how you have a lot of companies. You've done a lot of investing. What are you doing now, the entrepreneur? I know you've got a couple I want to ask you about, but I'll let you set it off. ProCap. I see you talking about Silvia. Is that the CFO, the AI-based? Very interested to hear about that. But what are you working on right now? I know you got a lot. You've always been working on a lot, by the way. I think I've always been very impressed with your energy.
Well, I just think in the future, there's a very unique spot that someone can fill where if you can operate companies, if you can allocate capital, and if you can create distribution online, that is, each one of those things is very difficult. If you can put all three of them together, I think that it's very hard to compete against, right? Because you have the ability to allocate resources, you have the ability to actually improve and grow things, but then you also have the distribution, which brings down cost in terms of actually getting adoption of certain things. So that's really the framework that I use, is being able to invest, operate, and create content online. If you think about what we do on a day-to-day basis, we run an investment firm, right? That investment firm is...
And that's professional capital management?
Correct.
Yes.
It's somewhat unique in that it is a permanent capital, private vehicle. We've got a great list of investors who I've partnered with to go and build this. And we started out incubating companies. And I think that, most folks are looking to allocate capital and they have kind of a GPLP structure. It's very focused on capital appreciation. There's a lot of illiquidity, and it causes them to constantly be out fundraising because they need more capital to replenish what they put out. By incubating cash flow positive businesses, what we were able to do is now we basically had a source of non-dilutive fundraising. And so we then had this cash flow that we could then use to go and do what we wanted to. So we put on the balance sheet, we could invest it, we could use it to fund new companies, we could reinvest in the company it came from. There was kind of optionality. So starting these businesses, our model essentially was we would go and we would find somebody who was an expert in a certain industry. We would partner with them. We would provide the funding, a lot of the infrastructure. They would do the thing that they're really good at doing. And it was a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, and we could really accelerate these companies. And we've done it in many different industries, everything from residential real estate analytics, a company called Resi Club, kind of built like a Bloomberg terminal for residential real estate.
Pretty cool.
To, we've done it with the AI CFO, right? And our entire model there is to find something in the world that we think is a problem, that we are uniquely suited to solve that problem between us and our partner, and to go and attack it, right? And it's taking this idea of entrepreneurs are really just problem solvers, right? And so find the problem, go solve it. If you solve it, people give you money, you can build a business.
Sounds really fun.
It's a blast.
Because you've got the whole world is your oyster.
Well, if you were to break down in these major themes, right, I have a couple of major problems I think exist in the world. I think that affordability is a massive problem, right? When we announced Resi Club 2 years ago, before the world was talking about affordability, I, in that piece, wrote about the fact that home affordability was eroding. This is a massive problem, but you can't solve the problem until you understand it. In order to be able to understand the problem, you have to go and get data. You have to be able to analyze it and drive the insights and inform people. And so I look at that specific business as a way to have maximum leverage. If we can go to hundreds of thousands of people who all are in a sector and say to them, there is a problem going on, let us give you the information to then use to go solve this problem, it's a force multiplier. And so, that business is run by a guy, Lance Lampert, who used to be the real estate editor at Fortune magazine. He's excellent. Right, he's an expert. People understand that he's probably the #1 residential real estate reporter in the country. We've really been able to go push that forward. Another problem is that we have a lack of financial education in this world, right? And so, again, affordability, financial education, all these things are kind of interrelated, but Bitcoin is a solution because it can help insulate you from the currency debasement. Silvia is able to take all of your financial information. So you attach your bank account, your brokerage, your crypto accounts, your credit cards. You can upload, private startup investments, your real estate, your cars, any asset you have. It'll track your net worth and stuff like that. But then we've built a bunch of these state-of-the-art AI models into the product so that you can actually start to talk to Silvia. Silvia's a CFO. And you can ask simple questions like, what's my cash balance, debt to equity ratio, things like that.
Yeah.
But then you can do really, really complex things, including we've taught Silvia how to code. So any question you ask, Silvia can get the answer because she can write code for herself, custom, to solve the problem. So
I need this.
Yeah, if you say, listen, I want to run a Monte Carlo simulation on my portfolio, run 100,000 simulations, and tell me where am I likely to be in 10 years?
No way.
In like 4 or 5 minutes, she will come back and be like, hey, I ran 100,000 simulations. Here's everything you need to know.
This is amazing.
Right?
This is like
Now,
what like QuickBooks should have been. Or
so
like
the whole thing is these AI models need the proprietary information. But here's the thing. People don't want to give the models the proprietary information. So we've negotiated these zero data retention policies with the models. We're able to hook these up. And the promise of the product to somebody is right now, the core product is completely free, right? I don't want to put a barrier for somebody to be able to get the education and insights that they need. And so once they attach their information, it gets encrypted, it gets anonymized, all the kind of privacy protection. My data's on the platform. I don't want that stuff out there, right?
Right.
And then you start to let Silvia go to work. And what we came to the conclusion of is she's smarter, faster, and cheaper than a human. Where do you think the world's going?
It seems
right?
like a compelling.
Yeah. Now, here's what's crazy. And I think this feeds into this kind of the more macro conversation. Everyone's like, oh, the job market's weakening, all this stuff, right? We've had a ton of RIAs and financial institutions reach out to us and say, we want to incorporate this into our day-to-day. And so the positioning to the user is usually like kill the financial advisor, right? Like you trust the software more than the human. The financial advisors understand that. They're like, wait a minute. If I could get replaced by this thing, what if I actually embrace it? I give access to my clients, so now they have the real-time information. They can ask all the questions that I don't want them to ask me, right, to the software.
Right.
And then I get more data because I get to see what does my client care about. I can better, they're looking for a house. Maybe I should help them right now because this is a really important point in their life.
That's brilliant.
And so I just think that, again, as we build these companies, you just pick these really big problems and you kind of attack them in different ways. And then that informs how do you invest, right? And so what we've realized is you can do stuff in the private market, but now we're expanding into the public markets. And we think that there's a lot of things that you can do kind of at scale in a very similar way. And we'll see how it goes.
And then the last one, ProCap. What are you doing? This is your Bitcoin company, or is it a treasury company? What are you guys doing with ProCap?
I don't know how people define, all these companies now. I feel like
we're evolving.
Yeah, I think everyone's got a different thing. The way that I look at, I at my heart am an entrepreneur, right? I am somebody who understands finance. I enjoy investing, but at the end of the day, I spent my entire career building companies, right? And when I look at building of companies, I always look at it as who is the customer, right? And I think that when you look at the kind of playing field of all of these companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, remember, Tesla holds Bitcoin on their balance sheet, right? Galaxy,
Figma.
right? Figma, I mean, all these different things. So everyone's got kind of a different reason why they're doing it, how they're holding it, whatever. There is a cohort of companies that a lot of people that I really respect, that I think are very intelligent, who frankly are much better served to build these businesses, where they have said, we are going to go and we're going to build digital credit. We're going to go and we're going to be able to grow Bitcoin per share and do things that I think people look at as there's a finance component to it that is a way to accretively get more Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I look at that stuff as like inorganic growth. It's, there's roll-ups. There's all these ways to build companies, right? That stuff's going to work. They're putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Like, Bitcoin's going to go up, right? Anyone who is critiquing them, and unless they take on massive amounts of leverage or mismanagement in some way, like, that's a winning strategy in my mind, right? And so those guys are going to go do that. What I'm personally interested in, what I think I'm best suited to do, is what I think of as more of like an organic growth story, right? So how do you go and build or buy some sort of cash flowing business, and then you use that cash flow to continue to grow the Bitcoin pile over time?
Interesting.
Now, neither one is right or wrong. Neither one is better or worse. There are two different approaches, no different than some people build companies from scratch. Some people go and they do roll-ups and buy a bunch of businesses. There's certain trade-offs in terms of capital needs, speed, size, all that kind of stuff. I do think that the organic growth is a little bit unexplored so far. And it's because you kind of need someone who understands Bitcoin, understands investing, and understands how to build a company. And so I'm really excited about going and doing that. We've put together a great team of people, I think, that can kind of help build that business. But, that story's not told yet, right? And I think that that's part of the excitement is when you have kind of a new vertical, a new, category, how do you help tell that story and become a leader in that? And I think that's what we have to show the public markets. Because the other thing about public markets, I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin world are learning Wall Street, traditional finance, the public markets. That's the big leagues.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It is almost like our industry. We've been playing like single A or double A baseball. We're really good at hitting 84-mile-an-hour fastballs.
Yeah.
97-mile-an-hour fastball, that's a big jump.
Yeah,
that's a little bit harder.
It's a different ball game.
There are going to be a lot of people who make it to the big show, and they're going to do fantastic on that. Some people aren't going to make it, though, right? And that's okay. That's normal. No different than a traditional private tech company going into the public market. Now, these companies and these executives and these founders, we're seeing this across the industry. It's not just Bitcoin treasury companies. You're seeing this with altcoin treasury companies. You're seeing this. I mean, how many companies are in the public markets now? You have Coinbase, Circle, you've got Gemini, you've got Bakkt. Right? I mean, we just go through all these companies. You've got the miners, all this stuff.
Yeah.
The public market is ruthless.
Yeah.
Good. Perform, or they're going to come for you.
It's another step in our maturation.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that I'll say is I think the crypto community is so used to things moving so quickly. It's very easy to become very short-term oriented. The famous Buffett quote of like the market is a voting machine in the short term and a weighing machine over the long term. Like the weighing is what matters, right? Now, there's going to be lots of this volatility, and I think that people are going to have to get used to the fact that there's lots of scrutiny. There is a lot of volatility in this industry. Volatility is a good thing, But what really matters is what kind of business do you build over the long run? And the beauty is that from an investor standpoint, like there's a lot of options, right? And I think the more options that investors have, the better. And also, I talk to a lot of the CEOs of these companies. They enjoy the competition because it makes them better. And it's kind of the beauty of a free market is you actually want really talented people competing against you because it makes you better, which then enforces, them to be better. And overall, the end consumer, the end investor, they get the best of whatever is, the competition.
You were at President Trump's visit to PubKey. I think people were pointing out that video. Like one of the only times I wasn't at PubKey. I unfortunately was in Singapore when this happened. Thomas was like, cancel the trip. Like, I can't tell you exactly why, but you got to come. What was that like? Because that was during the campaign. I think that was in late September of 2024. And it's just funny. I only point out that you were there. Many people were there, but you were in your suit. And I think my wife saw it and was like, she knows who you were. And her friend was like, is that a Secret Service guy? Because it's a Bitcoin bar. Most people were not in suits.
Yes.
But you were there. What was that like?
Well, Thomas was very tricky. So I was there. There's a lot of people there, and look.
Did you know that the president was coming?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
that early, but yeah.
Well, you had to get past Secret Service, and
it became pretty obvious.
The whole street was shut.
Yeah.
When I was walking in,
they had the awning out and stuff, right?
I was walking just onto the street and. I had a suit and tie on. I'm walking. There's protesters outside. Immediately,
they knew that Trump was coming.
They somehow knew that Trump was coming, and I'd never walked through an anti-Trump protest before. Very interesting kind of crowd, and I think I got called a white supremacist, a bunch of stuff, and I was, hey man, I want to go get a burger. You want me to bring you one, right? Like we could be friends. And so when I was in there. I don't think that I understood the concept of kind of the press pool, where the camera was going to be, all this stuff. And sure enough, he walked right in front of me, stopped at the bar. And next thing I know, my phone just starts blowing up.
Because you're just in all the pictures and videos of him.
I mean, that's.
I mean, it was great. I mean, I loved it. I mean, we laughed so hard at this video, dude. I mean, I've been friends with Thomas for a long time. I'm a big friend of the pub. And I was just like, dude, this is actually hilarious watching him. He's handing out burgers. You get a burger. You get a burger.
He the one thing I will say is I had been in a room with Trump, I think 2 times before that. But that was the first time seeing him kind of in what I would consider a much more like real scenario, right? It's not like inside of.
Right, like at a meeting room or something like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so what I think the kids would say, he's got aura.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the guy walked in and it's just, people who don't even like him all of a sudden are just like, damn, right?
I know. He's also a big guy. He's tall.
Yeah, well, I do think that they claim he's like 6'4". I don't know if he's 6'4". If he's 6'4", I'm 6'2", so we're good there. But he's very fit though. He probably got a 6-pack under there. And he was signing stuff. Yeah. I mean, just it was a whole thing. And so my takeaway though from the whole situation was, how about Thomas, Megan, and the entire PubKey team years ago saying we want to create a physical space, and somehow the president of the United States ends up showing up.
It's unbelievable.
Right? It's kind of like the build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Like that place has become a institution, I think, in New York. People come from all around the world.
It's a mecca, truly. People literally trek across the world to visit it.
Yeah. Now they're going to be opening up a second location in D.C. I don't know if that's public, but there you go.
I think they've said that they're working on it. I think it's well known. I don't know when it opens. But that I think that's going to be really fascinating to see.
Somebody should create a prediction market on when it's going to open.
We should create that, Thomas. I'm going to tell Thomas and Megan that we are creating that.
Maybe make the date December 31st before or after.
Pretty good question. I thought that was so interesting, and I loved seeing you there. And it has become a mecca. Before we wrap, I've got to ask you, who's your favorite, Becky, Andrew, or Joe?
They all three have different great qualities to them.
You've got to be one of the most prolific recurring guests on that show. You're on. Well, how often do you go on Squawk Box? Like every
I don't
2
think
months?
That's true. Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Well, who's on more?
There's people who are, running multi-billion-dollar companies.
I mean,
and
they're on
Tom Lees
period.
and
Okay,
stuff.
yeah, all right. I
Yeah.
mean,
There's a lot of people
you
who
go on
do
every quarter? It
amazing,
seems
great
like you're
work.
on at least every quarter.
The thing that I will say about that show is it is very rare in business in general, let alone in media, to have people who get along but disagree.
Right.
Right? There's an element to that show that is good television.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2018, I went on 2 times. It was the first time that I ever went on television. And the first time was like pretty unmemorable, right? I kind of went on. I didn't make any mistakes. I didn't say anything too
Did a good
crazy. Okay, fine. And I kind of felt a little bit like a robot. Asked some questions. Okay, let me say this.
Explaining Bitcoin.
What I didn't know is I was actually there because I was the whipping boy.
Oh,
like it was like 2018 bear market.
Sorkin wanted to yell at you about Bitcoin and crypto.
I don't even know if he was on that
yeah,
day or whatever. But like whoever was on,
they were skeptical.
Very skeptical.
Yeah.
The second time though, I will never forget because on my way to the show, I pulled up on my phone. I was watching the show. And I heard Kevin O'Leary on set say crypto garbage. Oh my God, here we go. This guy. Well, he must just be on the segment in front of me, and so I'm going to go on after him. Right. I get to the studio, they do the makeup and everything. I walk out there. He's still there. He's a guest host.
Oh, Lord.
And so I never met him at the time.
Yeah.
And I go to sit down, and he's sitting there, and he just gets a smirk on his face, and he looks over at me, and he goes, you like this Bitcoin stuff? And I say, yeah. He goes, how much of your dough's in it? And I say, and I panicked and I lied. And I said over 50%. It was like 95%. And I couldn't tell him. I just said, over 50%. And the look on his face, he like fell out of his chair. Right? He's like, oh my God. So you don't say anything else. Turn on. First thing this guy says to me, he goes, how much of your personal dough's in this? And so over 50%. And he literally is almost like standing up. He's like, I forbid that. That is crazy. And he's yelling at me. And I remember just sitting there, and there was just a trigger. I grew up in a family of 5 boys. Talking shit is a pastime in our house.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm not going to let this man talk shit to me on national television, and my brothers are going to mock me later. And so I just started firing back at him, and I pretty much thought I was never going to get invited back on the show, right? I was like, this guy's yelling at me. I'm yelling back, whatever. And I walked off, and the producer came up to me and goes, that was amazing. That was great television.
That's exactly what they wanted.
Yeah. And I was like, oh.
All right.
I now understand how this game is played. And
Yes.
so I now, Kevin O'Leary is obviously into Bitcoin and crypto.
Yeah.
I always tell him that he owes me half his profits because I convinced him.
Well, I feel like you must have had a big impact, or maybe you did, on Joe Kernan as well, because he's been a steadfast advocate for Bitcoin. One of my favorite. In fact, he just finally went to PubKey, I believe, like last week.
I think Joe's worldview aligns with Bitcoin, and it took a minute for him to realize, hey, this Bitcoin thing is part of the solution to the world that he had been talking about for a long time, which is very natural, I think, for a lot of people. Andrew Ross Sorkin said something to me once that is always stuck in my head, and I thought it was a very profound kind of insight from him. He said, we talked to a lot of different people. He goes, Bitcoin is the one asset that if I brought 10 of the smartest money managers in the room, and I said, okay, I'm going to leave the room. I want whoever believes in Bitcoin over here, whoever doesn't. He says, I'll leave. I'll come back in 20 minutes. 5 will be on this side. 5 will be on that side. And they'll think the other side has lost their mind.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, it's like the most, he's like, I don't understand it. He's like, for whatever reason, this asset.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, right? I think that we've all kind of seen it, but over time, you slowly get more and more people on the side of, this thing isn't going away.
Yeah.
And, I think Andrew, Joe, and Becky's credit, I don't know if they've ever been anti. I think that they've always been cautiously optimistic.
And interested. That's one thing about Andrew. I mean, some people think he's a critic. I think he's always been very interested in it. I think he's been, to the extent he has been critical, I think he's been fair. He's also an extremely bright guy as well. I just got his new book, 1929. I haven't read it yet. I've heard amazing things about it.
I just think that...
And he's got Deal Book Summit and like...
look, I'm married to a journalist, and one of the things that we always talk about is a lot of folks that operate in the business world, they are confused. They think that the media is, their PR machine, right? We get to a very bad place as a society if journalists don't do their job. Right. And the journalist's job is to be skeptical. It is to question things. It is to hold people accountable. It is to make people uncomfortable at times. Right. I've been on the receiving end. It's not fun. I don't like it.
Yeah.
But also I understand they're doing their job and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And so that is, kind of the healthy tension, I think, is, people are going on television. Well, what are they doing? They're talking about things they believe in, where they're putting their money. you don't want a show where people are just like, you're a genius.
No.
Everything's going up. You want
Right.
a show where there's debate and conversation and people question things. And frankly, when people say crazy stuff, they push back and they're like, that sounds crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So I think that's why that show, I mean, I think they just celebrated their 30-year anniversary. I mean,
It's crazy.
it's
It's a great show.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Right.
Well, we're at sort of time here. This has been awesome, Anthony. And I did want to say, I know we're recording this on November 12th, Wednesday. Yesterday, though, was Veterans Day. You are a veteran. Thank you for your service and the work you do with the Navy SEAL Foundation and the Crypto Murph and all these other things you do. But this has been awesome, Anthony. And we're going to have you back. But we got to wait long enough because I want to see when we're no longer the early adopter era. We're mass adoption.
No, we're in mass adoption.
All right,
now.
so we'll have you back.
I don't know what
and-
happens after mass adoption, right? Like,
Well,
maybe then you become dinosaurs, right? That's we got to
Yeah, then you
fight
just
that
become
off.
like the traditional system, I guess, is maybe the thing. So, Anthony Pompliano, ProCap, Silvia, and professional capital management entrepreneur and investor. Thank you so much for coming on Galaxy Brains.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of Galaxy Brains. Thank you to our guest, Anthony Pompliano from ProCap and Silvia and all the other things that he's building, entrepreneur, investor, and our friend, the bear, Bimnet Abebe. Everyone have a safe and happy weekend. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening to Galaxy Brains, the weekly podcast from Galaxy Research. If you enjoy the show, please like, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To follow Galaxy Research, sign up for our weekly newsletter at gdr.email, read our content at galaxy.com/research, and follow us on Twitter at GLXY Research. See you next week.